Let's look at another opportunity. Now this is from a 1-hour video I did called Prospect to Closing. And I'll pick one of the items out that I think would be helpful to the majority of people, especially if you're doing purchase or sales of deals. And that is the subject of backup contracts. So a property is under contract to a buyer, and there's potential to do a backup contract. Who does that help and who does that not help? Okay, so who does it help? It helps the seller, obviously, to have a backup contract. It helps the listing agent to have a backup contract. It helps the purchaser who is writing the backup contract. Let's talk about it briefly, because they're not that much trouble for what they're worth for those three parties. And so if you're a seller, obviously if you've got a backup contract, under contract, signed, blue ink, earnest money paid, and the purchaser tries to come back and do an unjust retrade, now, there's not really a good reason that they want to extend time or they want a price reduction. Then you have the opportunity to say, hey, look, I'm sorry you're going to miss this opportunity. We have a backup buyer we need to move forward on. Please let us know. Go ahead and cancel if you're not moving forward. So it puts you in a better negotiation position for retrades. If you're an agent, obviously, and you represent the seller, then that's a benefit for you as well. Another benefit for you for an agent is, look, when a transaction goes under contract and it falls through, typically the seller's not going to be real happy with the agent, right? Their agent. Clients don't need an agent's help to top their property and have it not close, right? As a principal, you want to make sure your agent's really managing a transaction properly, managing expectations, and involved enough in the deal that there's a real good chance it closes if it starts. So there's a benefit to the agent there as well, because if you're in this regard, if that deal does fall through, all right, you got another buyer here. So if the seller is upset with you, well, at least you've got a buyer right behind them. It can also be a benefit for the backup buyer. I'll give you an example. When I was a young man, I found a property that I wanted to buy. I was selling investment properties, found one I wanted to buy, and found out it was under contract. I decided to write a backup contract, earnest money, paid it. Then I get a call about a month and a half later, and the listing agent tells me, hey, that deal did not close, and your contract's in full force and effect. So I moved forward. I had to get a loan and do inspection and do that, and did the loan, got approved. And then when I called him and told him it was all set to go, we're ready to close, the listing agent tells me, well, Michael, we have a problem. I said, what's that? Well, we are under contract with another buyer. And I said, how could you be under contract with two buyers? He said, well, you're so young and you're a commission-only agent. We didn't think you'd get approved for the loan, so we signed a contract again with the previous buyer. I'm like, well, that wasn't very smart. Like, yeah, we know it wasn't, but that's what we did. So it ended up that they offered me a settlement to go away. So they wrote me a check as a backup buyer to go away. I could tell you several instances. Another one that was very profitable for the buyer was I was engaged to help a buyer who was an architect. He was a real estate broker, and he had found an apartment complex that he was interested in buying, and he asked me to represent him to negotiate the deal, look at the market, the comps, the upside, that sort of thing. When I got there and found out about it, it was under contract. And the buyers were three attorneys. And so I had my buyer write a backup contract. And he said, well, why are we doing this? I said, well, first of all, it's a great idea to have a backup contract. It doesn't hurt you to do it. And the buyer that's ahead of you has three lawyers. What do lawyers do? They look to protect people, look out for worst case scenarios to protect people. So there's a bigger chance, I think, of three lawyers not closing on the deal. Well, sure enough, they didn't close. Our contract came into play. And then right before this buyer client of mine, while he was in due diligence, he decided, you know what, I don't think I want this deal anymore. Do you know anyone else would want it? So I checked my Rolodex, so you know how old I am, and I found somebody that wanted to buy it from him. So he closed on it, closed an hour later with the next buyer, and my buyer client profited $1 million, and he owned the property for an hour. If he hadn't have done a backup contract, he would not have made that $1 million. So I think there's a lot of reasons why you want to look at backup contracts, and you want to look at them and make sure that you understand the wording very carefully, who you represent in these deals. Who does a backup contract maybe not benefit? I don't think it hurts them, but it's not beneficial to the buyer in the primary contract, because now if they are trying to delay, maybe there's some more pressure on them to close and they don't have as much negotiation power. Now, some buyers, knowing that, will put prohibitions in contracts related to that. So think about that if you're the buyer, seller, lawyer, broker, who you represent when you're going under contract on these things. So that's another way to help yourself related to backup contracts.
America's Commercial Real Estate Show is brought to you by Bull Realty. For customized asset and occupancy solutions, visit bullrealty.com. Commercial Agent Success Strategies. Incredible training for commercial agents. Visit commercialagentsuccess.com. BOMI International. For facilities and property management education, visit bomi.org. Buyproxy.com. Your global commercial real estate listing service. Visit buyproxy.com. Red IQ, turning multifamily data into actionable intelligence. Visit rediq.com.